Hello, this is Mr. Nolan, and I am making the screencast to talk to you about the stages of photosynthesis, light and dark. Now, I'm really oversimplifying this. I'm really not including all the individual details, all the actors. It's really much more sophisticated than this, but I'm just kind of giving you sort of a very superficial look at sort of what are the light and dark reactions supposed to accomplish, what are they meant to do. So let's go ahead and kind of dive in here and talk about the stages of photosynthesis. So we start with the light reactions. So there's a reason why that comes first, the light reactions. And we want to talk about what do they accomplish. The light reactions, when we're talking about photosynthesis, the light reactions are sort of like step one. And the light reactions accomplish a handful of really important things. What they accomplish, these are responsible for creating NADPH and ATP. So these create ATP and NADPH. Now, for the sake of this screencast, we don't really need to understand what exactly these are, but what we should recognize is that they are chemicals that sort of carry energy. They're a little bit like batteries that you can charge. Not in the same way that sugar is. These are the basis of energy in all organisms, but not in the same way that energy is. So the light reactions create ATP and NADPH, and these are later used in the dark reactions. So this is what the light reactions do. So let's go ahead and think about, what chemical reactions do we see when we're looking at the light reactions, and what is this supposed to mean? So in the chemical reactions of the light reactions, what we have is we have water, and our water is being broken down in the presence of light in order to make oxygen gas and some H+ ions. And so this is the reaction that we see here. So we're going to go ahead and model this reaction in our chloroplasts. The light reaction happens on a part of the chloroplast called the thylakoids. And the thylakoids are sort of a stack of sort of green pancake-shaped sort of structures that are inside the chloroplast, inside this organelle. And so this reaction is occurring on the thylakoids. So to model the light reactions, we're going to start, the substance that we're going to start with is water. We've got our water, and our water is being changed into something else. And it's being changed into something else in the presence of light energy. So this is happening in our chloroplasts. It's happening on the thylakoids of our chloroplasts. And it's also happening in the presence of enzymes. Now these enzymes involve chlorophyll. If you've heard of chlorophyll, that's a pigment that's found in chloroplasts, and it's actually used to help capture the right colors of energy, of light, so that they have the right amounts of energy. So we're hitting water with energy from light of a certain color with enzymes, and what we end up producing from this is O2 gas and H+ ions. Now, an ion is just a fancy way of saying a charged particle. There's positive ions, there's negative ions. And if we were to balance this, if we really wanted to sit down and balance this, we would say, well, we're going to need 2 waters, and that means that we're going to produce 1 oxygen gas and 4 hydrogen. So if we really wanted that balance, that's what we would do. So, I'm oversimplifying this, but basically what's important about these ions, these H+ ions, is that they actually carry a charge. A charge doesn't mean they have energy, but they can build up a potential. They can actually build up a voltage across, let's say, a membrane. And there's a name for this voltage. It's called an electrochemical gradient. So we have our hydrogen ions, and they build up a positive charge. Again, I'm skipping some details here, but we have our hydrogen ions that are going to build up a positive charge. And because they build up this positive charge, they are going to move toward a negative charge, because as we all remember from elementary school, opposites sort of attract. So in this electrochemical gradient, our hydrogen ions are actually going to move toward a more negative area or a less positive area. So that's that electrochemical gradient. And as they're passing through that area, toward that negative area, they're actually zipping through a special enzyme called ATP synthase. This is an absolutely beautiful protein. You can find videos of it on YouTube if you look for them. But this enzyme is called ATP synthase. And ATP synthase takes certain precursor chemicals and it creates ATP. Now what's also involved in this reaction is NADPH. Now ATP synthase does not create NADPH, but that's an important chemical that's created. I'm skipping the steps for how NADPH is created. So basically what we have here is we have our water, which as we know is a reactant in photosynthesis, and we're also creating oxygen, which is a product of photosynthesis, and the oxygen goes away. Right? So the plant does use a little bit of that oxygen to do respiration later, but most of that oxygen goes away and replenishes the atmosphere. So this is the light reactions of photosynthesis, and we can actually see if we look here, we go from light energy to really an energy of charge, a sort of electrical energy, sort of charge. We go to movement energy, and then we're also transferring this movement energy into chemical energy over here. So there's lots of transfers of energy and lots of transformations of energy in this process of the light reactions. And we haven't even really finished photosynthesis yet. This is only the light reaction, so we still have quite a long way to go. So the light reactions create that ATP and NADPH by harnessing sunlight and breaking up water. This process is called photolysis, is what you just saw. Photo means light, and lysis means to split or break up, so that's photolysis. So now let's think about our dark reactions. What's going on in the dark reactions? What do they accomplish? Well, the dark reactions take that ATP and NADPH from the light reactions, and they use it to create sugars for the plant. So this is the main idea behind what the dark reactions do. They create sugars for the plant. So this is very important for our plant to be able to do these dark reactions. So let's go ahead and model these dark reactions. Sometimes people call them the Calvin cycle. So we're going to start with our dark reactions. We're going to start with the ATP and NADPH that we created from our light-dependent reactions. And those chemicals are going to be used. And again, don't forget I'm oversimplifying here. But these chemicals are used to react with some sugar-like molecules. They're not sugar, but they're sugar-like molecules. There's all sorts of complicated names for them, but we've got sugar-like molecules. And these sugar-like molecules go through a transformation here. Carbon dioxide is added, right? So the plant is absorbing carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is reacting with these sugar-like molecules, and we are actually spitting out glucose, right? C6H12O6. So our glucose is now, we've created our glucose. Wonderful. We've made our glucose from our sugar-like molecules. But why do we call this the Calvin cycle? Because this really doesn't seem like it's complete. It's really, even though I bent it in half, it's really basically a straight line. We go from ATP, NADPH, sugar-like molecules, carbon dioxide is added, and we get glucose. Well, these sugar-like molecules, over the course of this reaction, are actually regenerated. So these sugar-like molecules are regenerated. And we end up with some of the same starting materials that we started with. And so that's why we call this a cycle. And it's named after one of the scientists that discovered it and worked on it. So this is the Calvin cycle. Because some of the materials that we use in this cycle are actually recycled back into the start of it. So this is the main idea behind the dark reactions, is we're creating sugar, we're creating glucose. The plant wants to create this sugar because it's going to either store it or it's going to use it. Right? It's either stored or used. So this is the point of the dark reactions. They take the products of the light reactions and they use them to make sugar. So let's try to sort of connect these two together. How are we supposed to explain this relationship? It's really a very complex relationship. How are we supposed to sort of simplify this so we understand it? Well, let's kind of rip out some of the details and just look at the basic idea. So let's take our light reactions. So we've got our light reactions here, and I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to draw our dark reactions. And even though I call them dark reactions, they don't necessarily happen at nighttime. They happen pretty much all the time. I've got my dark reactions going on. It's a cycle, so I'm drawing these arrows. We've got our water that comes into the light reactions. We also obviously have light. And we are producing NADPH and ATP. Order doesn't really matter. And we're producing a waste product, our oxygen. So that kind of goes away. And these products, the NADPH and the ATP, go up, they head up here into these dark reactions. These are going to use those sugar-like molecules. We're going to absorb CO2. And in the end, we're going to produce some sugar. Glucose. And if we really wanted to balance this out, what we would say is, well, we're going to use 6 waters. We're going to produce 6 oxygens. We're going to use 6 carbon dioxides. And then we're only going to produce 1 glucose from all the 6 carbon dioxides and those 2 waters that we used at the beginning. Once this is all said and done and all balanced, this is what our reaction looks like. So this whole complicated process is really where we're getting our photosynthesis reaction. This is really where this is coming from. We've got our H2O, 6 of them. We've got our carbon dioxide, 6 of them. And that's producing our sugar. And then we also have oxygen as that byproduct, right, that the light reactions create. So if we really pay attention here, we see that the things created by the light reactions are right here. Our oxygen is created by the light reactions. And then we also have our hydrogen, our water, This is also being used by the light reactions. It's a reactant. And if we try to look at, well, what is the dark reactions doing? The dark reactions are actually that carbon dioxide. The dark reactions are absorbing that carbon dioxide. And then the sugar is being produced by our dark reactions. So we can see that, well, these are our 2 things involved in the dark reactions. These are the 2 things involved in our light reactions. So we really don't have, photosynthesis is not a one-step situation. We really have a lot of things going on here. We have our light reactions create that NADPH and ATP. We have that moves into the dark reactions, and then finally we produce sugar. So I hope that this kind of at least gives you maybe a simplified idea of the light and dark reactions and why they are, how they are related. I really skipped a lot of details. There's plenty of resources that you can go online if you really wanted to find some more details about this. But this really kind of is the gist of it. This is really how our reactions are related and how we create that wonderful sweet sugar from our different reactions, is that light and dark reactions working together to create sugar for our plant.